The Clemson Tigers are a dumpster fire, and Texas is ready for some Bama blood. Let's talk about it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to FanBuzz Weekly. I am Tyler Brook. Patrick is out today, but we have a very special guest. We are joined by Will Schwartz, Michigan grad, FanBuzz writer, covers a lot of college football, baseball, all kinds of stuff for us. Will, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Tyler. Very excited to be here. Hello to the FanBuzz Weekly audience. I'm looking forward to getting into the episode.
Yeah, obviously we've got a bunch to cover. Week one was pretty crazy, I guess you could say. Let's just go ahead and kick off with Monday night's game. Big upset, Duke over Clemson. Got a lot of people talking. Clemson only able to score 7 points. Bunch of red zone miscues, leading to a lot of questions about head coach Dabo Swinney. Is the Dabo Swinney era over in Clemson? Will, what are your thoughts about everything that's going on in Clemson? Because obviously it's not great.
No, I mean, obviously we have to look at the fact that they did turn it over, I think 4 times in the red zone. Like you said, they were 1 for 5, 7 points. I mean, that's to an extent that's a coaching failure, but to an extent that's also fluky. They're not going to be a 20% red zone team this year. We'll see more from them. But is the Dabo era over in terms of being a good team? No, Dabo's one of the better coaches in the country. But in terms of this Clemson, we used to see that was always in the playoff, always usually in the championship game if they didn't run into Alabama too soon. That is probably over. Dabo he's a little too rigid in a couple ways. I think he's stuck in the last era of college football.
Yes.
He will not use the transfer portal under pretty much any circumstances, which we've seen is eroding the talent they have. They used to have, they had consecutive incredible quarterbacks, not exactly consecutive, but Deshaun Watson to Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be hard to achieve that consistently without the portal. The defensive front, the wide receivers, also incredible every year. That consistency won't be there anymore. And even after bringing in Garrett Riley, he's showing an unwillingness to adapt the offense. We saw a lot of classic Dabo calls on Monday night. So I think it's going to be hard for them to stay at the top without adapting. They're going to make the 12-team college football playoff. Not every year, but pretty routinely once that hits. But a top 4 team every year? No, not anymore.
I think the point you bring up about the transfer portal, I could not agree more with. It's just a different era of football now. Lane Kiffin was one of the early adopters of that, FAU, Ole Miss. We're seeing it all across college football now. Wisconsin, obviously Colorado, was just an absurd amount of transfers, and we'll get to them in a minute. But just it feels like Dabo, while other great coaches like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart are beginning to embrace this new era, Swinney just refuses to. He's extremely stubborn in that regard, and I think it's going to ultimately, hurt Clemson in the long run. But like you said, expanded playoff, playing in the ACC should still help them out. I think the one thing we're not talking enough about, and this spans back to last year, the loss of Brent Venables as defensive coordinator. This defense just does not look the same despite having all the talent in the world. You look at the linebackers, Eric Carter, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., you have talent all across that defense. It's just they are not able to execute, gave up way too many points, a lot of miscommunication, too many wide open plays for the Duke Blue Devils. So don't see a playoff coming for Clemson this year. Just too much talent in this season. But let's go ahead and break down to the other, big story of the weekend. Colorado's upset win over TCU. Officially now in the AP Top 25. Shedeur Sanders, school records, 500-plus passing yards, 4 touchdowns. But the guy that stole the show, Travis Hunter. I'll get your take in a second, Will, but I just got to go off on here because I just got to say it. I think Travis Hunter is college football's Shohei Ohtani. Okay. I have never seen a kid play 120 snaps on both sides of the ball at wide receiver and cornerback. And not only do that, he had 11 catches, over 100 yards, pass breakup, interception, highlight plays all over. He mossed a kid. The touchdown got called back, but it was still an unbelievable play. I'm willing to say it. If he continues to play 120 snaps on both sides of the ball all year, that kid's the Heisman frontrunner. What do you think, Will?
If we're going to go with that, absolutely. I played at a small high school and I played both ways, and I can't even wrap my head around, doing that in not just a Division I game, but a game where you're doing the Sean Lewis flash fast offense where there's like a million snaps. It's unfathomable. The kid is special. But yeah, if he plays 120 snaps and if he does well with those 120 snaps, of course, like he did against TCU, absolutely, he's a Heisman contender. But I think that's a huge if. I don't think that Colorado is going to be able to use him like that every single week. They're going to have to pick their spots. And TCU on the road to open the season and open this era, that was a great spot to pick. Throw the kitchen sink at it, get in the top 25. It's Deion Sanders. The guy knows everything about being in the spotlight. And I do think it's kind of special for someone like Dion to have such a special two-way player, because Dion, defender, punt returner,
So fitting,
center fielder. But yeah, Travis, I've been thinking about what he needs to get on the Heisman stage, maybe 750 to 900 receiving yards with 5 to 7 interceptions. But in terms of getting on the stage, I think that'll do it if Colorado doesn't even win another game. But maybe they need a couple. But Heisman is more of a team award than we would like it to be sometime. So for him to actually not just be on the stage, but holding the trophy, I don't know. He needs that plus 9 wins from Colorado, if not 10. And I don't know. I believe in this team a bit. I picked them to cover in week 1. I have them winning outright in week 2. And I think they're going bowling for sure. But 9 wins a lot for all these pieces to come together in year 1.
The team success point's a great point, not one you're really thinking of, especially after the overreactions of just one game, right? It was pretty impressive. The fact that he did this in like over 100-degree weather too still just blows my mind. But to your point, it's the load management. Is that sustainable for an entire season? It's a punishing sport. He's playing 2 of the most physically demanding positions on the football field. It's just nonstop running. I don't understand how your body can do that for 12 weeks plus a bowl game. So time will tell how he does there. But still, I mean, what a debut. I mean, obviously playing at Jackson State, but yeah, you can't get much better than there. Let's go ahead and move on to, the big Sunday night matchup, LSU Florida State. Just an unbelievable show-out performance from the Florida State Seminoles, just completely destroying the LSU Tigers in the second half of that game. Is this Florida State's year? Because Keon Coleman, Jordan Travis, you've got Jared Verse on defense. They kind of have a squad, Will.
Yeah, I mean, depending on by their year, are we talking about winning the whole thing? Because I probably don't think so. But are they going to go to the playoff? I think they have as good of a path as almost anyone, except for Georgia, who's pretty much already in. But
that's fair.
I think that Florida State was by far, I mean, other than Colorado and getting themselves on the map, but in terms of actual positioning for this season, man, Florida State was the biggest winner of the week by far. They took down LSU, who many people, including myself, saw as a playoff contender. And they did it in very convincing fashion. LSU has some of their own problems, but I would say that contrary to like the Clemson game, that was a lot more Florida State beating them than LSU beating themselves, especially in the second half. But they've got a great path, especially if Clemson is kind of subpar. I mean, that was the other reason that makes Florida State such a huge winner. Their path is clear. North Carolina looks better than expected, but they're not going to have the defense to slow down this whole Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman connection, which is, man, you see what happens when people get freed from Michigan State. It's absolutely unbelievable. Seriously.
Speaking from a Michigan grad, wow.
Yeah, oh my God. But I'm not a huge fan of that offensive system. Well, I like it, but I don't think they should like it. But I'm not a huge Jordan Travis guy myself. I think he's got a lot of physical talent, but he can be a bit of a first read guy, and especially under pressure, his footwork kind of falls apart. But man, he has definitely enough talent to pull them through this ACC. I think that they could be a top 14 for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely think Travis is talented enough. He may not be a first-round quarterback like, some of the early preseason hype is from an NFL standpoint, but the weapons he has is just going to set him up for success. I mean, Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, that's just two massive receivers to be throwing at. I like the way Benson runs. I think he's a hard runner. The O-line held up well. But what really stood out to me in that second half is just, like you said, I think they just out-physicaled LSU. I mean, they're running over guys on the sideline like it's nothing. They don't even look tired. Very, very promising to see. And obviously with Jared Verse and some other playmakers on defense, I just think there are more than enough pieces there. And like you mentioned, the schedule, that's absolutely a college football playoff contender. Anything can happen in the playoff once it starts. But, as we can see, some team can sneak in there and get blown out in the national championship game as well.
Oh, my God.
So that's always a possibility. Speaking of college football playoff contenders, we got 2 of them coming up this Saturday in a little old revenge match for the Texas Longhorns going against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Kind of a controversial game last year. Texas put Bama on upset alert. Quinn Ewers goes down early. I can't remember who was the backup. Was it Hudson Card? Wow. A name I do not think of often. Day. He did. He played admirably. So I'll give him that. You had a controversial potential safety in the end zone with Bryce Young as well. So just a whole lot going on in that game. Bama ultimately pulls it off. Now Texas has a chance for revenge. Problem is they're going to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Is that home field advantage going to make this way tougher this year?
Yeah, and I really do think that's what it comes down to. I think that Texas got dealt such a tough card with Quinn going down in that game. Ewers has some problems, especially early in his career. But man, the talent is there as much as anyone in the country, and it was really showing that game. It's such a what if for last season. Not that Bama made the playoff anyway, but it would have been really cool to see what Texas could have accomplished in that game. I think they had it. Because see how close they came without him anyways. But will they get revenge? I kind of don't think so. This Bama team looks a little sharper than I expected them to right out of the gate. I mean, it's Middle Tennessee, but Middle Tennessee is not terrible, especially defensively. They managed to keep a lot of pieces, even amidst all the portal stuff going on, and Bama just absolutely ripped them apart. I'm not a huge Jalen Milroe guy. I think the Milroe takes are ridiculous. I've seen him. He's the new Jalen in reference to Hurts. That's crazy. Hurts is special, but he looked a lot better than I expected. I think we're going to see this year that a theme is quarterback consistency, where a lot of these teams that have had the same quarterback as last year have gotten out of the gates fast. Whereas like guys like Kate Klubnik, who's having the starting job for the full time for the first time, struggled a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll get into Michigan, but JJ McCarthy looks way better than last year. But anyways, yeah, I don't think that Texas is going to get the upset going. This is the kind of game that Alabama wins at home. We've seen like Kirby Smart doing this mental warfare stuff where he convinces his Georgia team that they're underestimated or something, as they're 25-1 with 2 rings. But this Alabama team is actually underestimated, and Saban is going to let the guys in the building know that. They're going to defend home field. They're going to get some pressure on Quinn Ewers, which Rice did not at all. And his completion percentage last year dropped down to 43% under pressure. So if Bama is able to get some heat on him, this could be an ugly one. It could be like a Texas cover for the spread, but I think Alabama's going to win.
I think one of the things that frustrated me about the whole offseason, just, everyone's like, it's going to be a down year for Alabama, and therefore they're not going to be good. A down year for Nick Saban and Alabama is still competing for an SEC championship. So, let's not get that twisted. This is still a very, very good football program. It's going to be well coached, well executed, and that home crowd is going to bring the juice. I like some of the weapons Texas has. I'm fascinated by Xavier Worthy as an NFL prospect. I believe it's Jordan Whittington, kind of the bigger bodied wide receiver. But that being said, I'm not sold on that hostile environment. It was different when Texas got to play at home. But I just can't see it. I think Jalen Milroe, obviously a hot start. This is a big prove-it game for him. If he can keep that consistency going, have another nice day, kind of hold down that starting quarterback spot, suddenly Alabama is back in this playoff conversation. In my preseason rankings, I didn't even have them in the first 2 out. I just think there's too many teams that are loaded this year. But, if Milroe can hold his own against the Longhorns, I think they're right back in it. Suddenly, it's back in the conversation. Like, can they compete for the SEC title? Even if they make it and they lose out, can they still sneak into the playoff? I'm very interested to see what happens with that Crimson Tide this year. But, we saved the best of our last since we have Will on here. Obviously, he is a Michigan grad. Figure we could give him some time to talk about the Michigan Wolverines. Impressive debut in their first week without Jim Harbaugh. First off, before we get into talking about whether or not this is a playoff team, what are your thoughts on the Jim Harbaugh suspension?
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, buying a cheeseburger for a recruit. I think the most embarrassing part is that he's taking major recruits to Brown Jug, which is like at best a top 10 cheeseburger in Ann Arbor. I mean, if you're going to break the rules, go to the top. But that would be Pretzel Bell. But seriously, I can't believe that they're looking at 3 or 4 games for buying a recruit a cheeseburger. We're in the NIL era. This is like, to call this a regular Tuesday in the SEC would just be a joke to regular Tuesdays in the SEC. I mean, there's so much crazier stuff that goes on at these programs, even in the Big Ten, ACC, everywhere else. And we're talking about a cheeseburger. Obviously, the problem is that he didn't cooperate with the investigation more than the actual buying of the cheeseburger in the first place. But it all stems from him coming under scrutiny for something that just should not matter at all.
Yeah. I have to agree with you there. Especially during COVID, and just if you're just trying to find some food last minute and you're on a recruiting visit, just get the guy a burger. I don't get what the big deal is about that and became such a scandal. But, obviously we wanted to bring you on here for a reason. Obviously an impressive win week 1, a lot of weapons on Michigan. I'm curious, do you really think this team can compete for a playoff spot? Do they have a chance to win that rivalry game again against Ohio State at the end of the year? And then, just what does the future hold for this program?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll start with dialing into Ohio State because I've looked at the schedule. There's not enough room for impressive wins for us to actually lose to Ohio State and still make the playoffs. It's a little controversial after Ohio State did the same last year, but I do think we got to go and win the Big Ten if we want to make the playoff. That being said, I think we absolutely will. I think our 14th game of the season, being the semifinal, will be our first close game of the season. we went into the Horseshoe without Blake Corum. We absolutely demolished that team. We bring everybody back. They're losing Stroud. They're losing JSN. They've lost so much. We've lost absolutely nothing, and we're actually adding back Corum pretty much, and they have to come to Ann Arbor. I don't know how they're going to run with us in that game. But as far as week 1, I actually did not love the performance in a lot of ways. I thought the run game stalled out a little bit. Did not love that, but we have to remember that not just Jim Harbaugh was suspended for that game, but so is Sharon Moore, our offensive line guy, who is the big driving force for that running game. There was it didn't look like our guys were getting blown off the ball. There was some schematic stuff that I hated. And I think Sharon getting back onto the field will help us adjust and move forward. Maybe run the ball a bit more. I loved seeing the passing game. JJ McCarthy I'm not a JJ guy. He looked incredibly sharp on opening day. And if he can do that and we can get the running game back to where it is, because this team's identity has to be running the ball downhill. We got away from it against TCU and it burned us on the goal line. We did it against Ohio State and it won us the game the second straight year. If we can combine that running downhill with a bit more of a vertical passing game from JJ, man, the offense is going to be great and the defense is always fantastic. They were more impressive, I think, on opening day. Smothered East Carolina. You've got guys coming back at all levels. You've got Junior Colson, one of the best linebackers in the country, Will Johnson and Mike Sanders still, who already got a pick against East Carolina, and then Chris Jenkins and Mason Graham on the line. This team's as loaded as absolutely anybody in the country. And I'm a little afraid of Jim coaching against someone like Kirby Smart, who's been here over and over.
Yeah.
But football-wise, guys on the field-wise, I like us against anyone in the country. I think this absolutely has to be the year before there's a new Big Ten, a new playoff format to figure out, and more importantly, will be like Ohio State next year when we graduate. Corum, JJ, most of the team will be gone. So this has to be Michigan's year.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. I mean, I was surprised that Corum came back watching him from a draft evaluation. I mean, I thought he was one of the best running backs in the class. Just a really impressive runner, compact frame, great contact balance. Feels like he sheds a ton of tackles. So getting him back with J.J. McCarthy, who, again, showed real flashes last year at times, has to be exciting for you. So as an IU grad, I can't say I'm rooting for you, but I'm glad that we got you on the show, Will. Really enjoyed you coming on. For everyone watching, thank you for watching FanBuzz Weekly. Wow, FanBuzz Weekly, kind of a tongue twister at times. But make sure you subscribe, follow our shows. We'll have more guests on like Will. I'm sure Will did a great job. I'm sure he'll be coming back later this college football season. But thank you so much, guys, for watching. We'll see you next time.